Hey everybody, Chris here. Today's episode is our very first episode recorded live in front of an audience, and it was also streamed live on Facebook. And I've done no editing at all other than adjusting sound levels. And because we were in a big warehouse type event space, it's not the usual sound quality that I've come to expect, but it's pretty damn good for a live recording. So huge thanks to all the people over at So Ill and at Climb So Ill for making our visit absolutely amazing. Nate and I were there for a week. I emceed the So Ill Showdown, and then Nate and I ran several workshops, and then we recorded this live podcast at the gym. So big thanks to those guys. I really appreciate them giving it a chance and letting us do our first one there. And of course, I want to say a huge thanks to everybody who came out and supported and bought t-shirts and did a workshop and came for the podcast, and just everybody who expressed to us, their appreciation of what we do. We have nothing but appreciation and love for you guys. So thanks, and we will be back to St. Louis before long, and hopefully we'll be bringing one to all of everyone else's town out there. See you guys soon. It's live. Dave saw it on the Facebooks. So if you guys are on the Facebooks watching and for some reason this feed cuts out, it's because we're all technically deficient. And in our version of live, that meant we're doing it in front of live humans. And then I got all sorts of messages saying, where can we stream it live? And I said, that's a good question. I don't know. So we're figuring it out for you. So hopefully this stays running. If it doesn't, sorry, you'll hear the audio tomorrow. And we're going to be getting started in just a minute. You guys good to go? Okay.
Really don't know.
This time, power. This time to build power. This time to build power. This time to build power.
What's up, everybody? I am your host, Chris Hampton. Welcome to the Power Company Podcast, brought to you by PowerCompanyClimbing.com. We're here at Climb So Ill with a couple of the owners, and these guys have a whole bunch of titles between them, and I could run through them, but I think we'll get to that tonight in the podcast. We're joined by, of course, Nate, who you guys all know, and also Yusuf, Daneshyar, and Dave, Chancellor. And we're going to talk tonight about success and how we define it in the climbing world and in the industry and just in our own climbing in general, and the path that we took to get there. And I think we all took pretty different paths. So I think it's interesting to see that there's so many ways to make a living in the climbing industry, because that's what we're all doing at this point. We were all climbers first and climbers at heart, but we've all found a way to pursue our passions and make a living off of it. So why don't we start by, Nate, how long have you been climbing?
I've been climbing about 13 years.
13 years. So he's a little longer than you, Yusuf, right?
Yeah, right around 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yusuf's at 10, and you've been climbing how long?
Hovering around maybe 20 years, but I'm well beyond my prime.
You said 15 years like 5 minutes ago.
I think I'm up to 25 years. I have trouble with math, Chris.
I don't doubt that for a second, actually.
I just found out that my iPhone has a calculator on it.
Does it really?
Yeah.
Do you know how to access it?
It's a big deal.
Because I have no idea how to access my calculator.
And how long have you been climbing, young man?
I've been climbing 22 years, I think.
Okay.
I think. It's a little foggy at this point, but I think 22 years. Are you both from Southern Illinois or St. Louis area?
Yeah, originally St. Louis. Spent a lot of time on the road traveling, climbing. Moved down to Illinois for, almost 10 years. And back here, family, friends, work, everything kind of pulled me back to this direction. So I like the city. I like the heartbeat. I just love it here.
Cool. You fit in here for sure. The city seems to love you too.
Fake it till you make it.
Yusuf, where did you grow up?
Yeah, so when my parents moved to America, of all places, they decided to move to Carbondale, Illinois.
Really?
So of every other place they could have gone, they settled in Carbondale. So we lived in Carbondale for a few years and then moved to Glen Carbon, Illinois. So born and raised in Illinois, and then moved to St. Louis for school.
Okay.
That's kind of what brought me here.
Yusuf, you're telling me they could have moved to California, Colorado.
I've been in California.
And they ended up in Southern Illinois.
Southern Illinois is beautiful.
Yeah.
Best kept secret. Yeah.
I think you wrote a guidebook around that topic, huh?
Yeah.
So did you start climbing at Jackson Falls or one of the areas right around Carbondale?
No, I kind of wandered into a climbing gym. I'd just gotten let go from an internship at a radio station here in St. Louis. They didn't think I was a team player, so they cut me from the team. So I had nothing else to do, and I was just walking around and kind of wandered into this climbing gym. And from then on, I just fell in love with it and didn't realize it, but I ended up dedicating my life to it.
Okay.
And shortly after that, after I realized that there was climbing in Southern Illinois, I was there, every opportunity.
So
every
you were
weekend.
closer to climbing before you found it.
Yeah,
you moved
exactly.
further away and found it afterward.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of cool. When did you discover it, Dave?
Let's see. My uncle took me out for a top rope session when I was 15 and just fell in love with it. I knew instantly that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I've shared the story many times, but after that, after that trip, we built a small climbing wall in my parents' basement, and we started charging the neighborhood kids to come over and use the climbing wall.
It's the beginning of Climb So Ill, happened in your parents'
in my
basement.
parents' basement.
Yeah.
And it was at one point, it was really successful because we're like, wow, I'm 15 years old and we're making $100 a month. And I thought, I will never leave my parents' house. This is incredible. And it came with a lot of stumbling blocks. We started making our own holds out of sand. I remember at one point my brother decided to wash these holds in the dishwasher and just wrecked my parents' brand new dishwasher.
Good job, Dan.
Chalk dust through the entire house and the HVA system. But all that aside, climbing grabbed me. It helped me, connect with trips, traveling, people, and just inspired me, down this road. So.
Yeah, and Nate, you grew up in Houston.
Yes.
How on earth do you find climbing in Houston?
Climbing gym.
Climbing gym. What climbing gyms were going on at the time?
At the time it was Stone Moves and Texas Rock Gym, but I was climbing over at Stone Moves. Buddy of mine, John Muse, had just bought it. And had a couple friends who were going, and it seemed awesome, and then started going, and man, I couldn't stop.
Did John introduce you to it?
Yeah.
Okay.
He actually took me out for a couple of my first climbing trips too.
Yeah, that's kind of how I got started too. A friend introduced me to the gym, and then I didn't go back for a while. I was a gymnast beforehand, so I kind of took to it immediately, and I went a couple of times, and then got into a bunch of trouble. And while I was locked up from the trouble, I decided I need a better hobby, and rock climbing was that hobby. So the day I got out of lockup, I went straight to the climbing gym and bought a membership. Believing that the climbing and the climbing community was going to be the thing that saved me, and ultimately it was. So I think it was a good choice, one of the few I've made. But
it's crazy how it just grabs you. Like I try to think of anything else that I've run into that grabs you like that. It has the ability to like flip your life upside down.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, immediately it can all just take over for sure. So when did the whole company start for you?
Our official launch, I think, was 2002 at the Phoenix Bouldering Contest.
But you were making holds way before that.
We started before that. It was a lot of trial and error, trying to figure out formulas and processes for, manufacturing and stuff. And
you say figure out formulas like you were little scientist kids in there. Were you just winging it, or were you actually figuring out formulas?
Totally winging it. We knew absolutely nothing. I remember the first our first visit with a urethane manufacturer, and we showed up in flip-flops and shorts and long hair, just rolled out of bed and walked into a boardroom hoping to gain some sort of respect out of these guys and communicate our message of what we're trying to do.
Yep.
Pretty much they laughed us out of the room, except for one guy. I don't know if he had kids or just felt compassionate, but he probably just felt sorry for us. But he really took us under his wing and helped kind of us work through the process and work through mold creation and trying to figure out how to take a concept to market or to a product that eventually we can deliver to a customer. And
how old were you then?
Gosh, let's see. So I think I was hovering around maybe 18, 19, somewhere in there.
That's a cool schooling to get at that age.
Yeah, and I just clowned around a lot. My brother was...
You still clown around a lot.
This guy? My brother was a great driving force through all of this. I felt like we had the perfect partnership. He did all the work, and I just kind of hung out.
Why don't we have Dan up on the board then? What's going on here? We got the wrong brother.
Oh, man.
So, Yusuf, I know you kind of lived the dirtbag life for a while. You were full-time climber guy in the red for a while, right?
Yeah.
When did that come about?
A lot of people thought it was a bold move, and I have to absolutely deny that claim. I had nothing else to do out of college. I graduated with a degree in English literature, which didn't exactly open a lot of doors for me.
Yeah. Not a lot of jobs there.
Nate and I were talking about this the other day. I just had this moment where I realized if I'm getting turned down at every job and every job interview is stopping right after that interview, I can get turned down from jobs anywhere in the country. I didn't need to be in
for sure.
Southern Illinois.
Yeah, totally.
To get shut down. So
you went to Slade, Kentucky.
So I went to that was the first stop. I stayed in Slade. Linda was great. Let me stay at her place, and maybe about 6 months into that, I realized I don't know what I want to do with the rest of my life, but I really enjoy this. And so then I just it was less of a decision and just more of like Dave said, you just connect with the right people and.
Did you stay there through the summers?
No, I got out during the summers. I spent one summer there and it was a mistake. And, I started to learn that, you can travel seasonally. You can beat the heat, you can get out.
Where were you going?
So most summers were in Lion's Head.
Oh, cool.
Stayed up there with a few of my friends there. Or we'd make it out to Rifle or Maple, just anywhere where it wasn't humid. So.
And how are you funding these travels at that point, since your English lit degree wasn't paying for it?
So the first year, I actually had saved quite a bit of money. I was pretty conservative.
It was like college jobs you saved money from?
Yeah, exactly. Just and so that allowed me to make it through the first year. And then once that started to run low, I realized anyone can get a credit card. And
they're just giving them away.
They just give them away, So I think I got my first Discover card, and I didn't have a permanent address, so I was never getting the bill.
Oh yeah, I remember the Discover card.
Yeah, so I just, I funded that next year and a half all on Discover.
Did your parents eventually call you and say, there are bill collectors knocking down the door?
No, I was really fortunate. My parents were really supportive. They
just paid your bill?
No. They absolutely did not pay my bill. No, because I came back to that. Yeah. That was my responsibility.
Good job, parents.
Yeah, they did a great job. So, no, they were really supportive. They knew that that I really wasn't sure what direction I wanted my life to go in, but climbing had been this really positive thing for me. And even though they didn't understand it, they liked the effect it was having on me, And we were talking about this the other day. It really teaches you how to be, how to set a schedule, how to set goals, how to achieve those goals. It really teaches you how to live simply, which is one of the strongest lessons. You learn how to be really
frugal.
Absolutely, yeah. And so I think they saw that I was getting an education on the road, even though I wasn't jumping right back into grad school. Yeah,
and that's what you were saying about climbing kind of taking over, Dave. I think that's kind of a point we all come to, whether we're dirtbagging or still working a 9-to-5 job or in college still or whatever. At some point, all of our brains are going, how can we just climb all the time? You know, how can we figure out how to make this work? And you know, it isn't necessarily for everyone. Why did you three guys decide that that's the direction you were going? Like, was it just totally an addiction? Is that what happened, do you think?
In terms of climbing taking over our life?
Yeah, like why forego everything else that society has told you this is how you're supposed to live your life and go, never mind, I'm going to go rock climbing?
Sure. I mean, I think my story is much like Yusuf and probably a bunch of us is, heading down the trajectory of getting a degree and starting to, plug yourself into the work machine. And at that point, climbing had grabbed me and it was time to check out. But I mean, it comes with challenges. It's living on the road, it's broke, it's suffering for it. You're constantly struggling between, I think it's fighting that, coming, back to reality, back to 9 to 5 and trying to push forward and stay on the road. I don't know. I think for me, it felt like the people I met on the road, to this day, I can still see those people that impacted me as I was on the road. And they were so welcoming, invited us into our homes, they climbed with us, just like the fabric of the community is what just grabbed me. So it was like the climbing and the community is what attracted me to this sport.
Yeah, that's cool to hear, because I think that's what I see you doing in this gym anyway. When I come to this gym, I'm like, and I've said this to everyone I've talked to about Climb So Ill, that every 2 out of 3 people have on a Climb So Ill shirt or a So Ill bag or So Ill shoes or something. They're all so proud to rep this brand that you guys have built. And that's why we love coming here, because we're all about trying to build the community around this thing that we're doing, and we see how well you guys have done it. So it's not surprising to me at all that you keep saying, the community drew you in, because I think that's your strength for sure, is building this community.
I think it boils down to just a genuine love for people and like giving them respect and the time that they deserve. And it's the same thing we want. Technology pulls us, work pulls us, family pulls us, but it's just like, it's the people that I gravitate to.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and the lifestyle on the road is really simple. There's not a lot of things that you have to do. You don't have to be somewhere by a certain time. So life just moves a little slower. And I think that was really attractive, that I didn't really have to be anywhere on time.
Did you have constant struggles, like, why am I not using my degree, or why did I spend all that money? Or did you just go full tilt into, I'm just going to live this dirtbag life? Yeah,
like for 2.5 years, it was definitely full tilt. Like it didn't even occur to me that I should be doing something else. And like Dave said, it was the people really helped encourage you to keep doing it, because it's such a difficult thing to do. The sport is difficult, the lifestyle is hard, figuring out a way to make it last can be challenging, but you surround yourself with such good people. They just help you, they just keep you going, which is great. I think the other reason I stayed in it as long as I did was it was the one thing I did that gave me confidence. And I tell this to kids on our climbing team all the time, if you can rock climb, you can do anything, right? This is something that seems so difficult and unapproachable, but if you just put a little bit of time into it, you figure it out, and you can make impossible things look effortless, right? Yeah. And so, to me, once I realized, like, if I can live on the road and climb anywhere in the U.S. and network with people all over the world, like I can do anything. So that was really attractive about climbing for me.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Climbing teaches us so much about life in general. and so many things that we can take into the rest of our life and our business and our work and our family or whatever. Nate, your dad told me something really funny that I kind of want to bring up.
You probably shouldn't.
And I think this really illustrates this whole like climbing grabs you thing, when Nate was, you might have been already gone away to school or something, and your dad was like, well, let's get you a new car, your car's falling apart.
No, it had fallen apart. I rolled it.
Okay,
I had a
rolled
Forerunner and I hydroplaned it into a ditch and I rolled it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And your dad's like,
I was like 18, I think.
Woo!
Yeah.
Cooking with gas.
that's a rough
I
time.
still miss that Forerunner.
And dad was like, well, let's get you a new car. And Nate's like, well, can I just have the van in the driveway? And Nate wanted the van. What college kid wants the van in the driveway? I think that's such a climber thing to do. So, why choose that over the college life, the cool kid life?
I don't know. It just kind of, I feel like this is how a lot of things have happened. It's sort of naturally happened. Like, so I rolled my Forerunner, and this was over Thanksgiving break. I was driving up to the Red. I had just gotten better from having broken a collarbone. And
Doing what?
Riding a bicycle. Yeah.
I broke my femur the same way. Stay away from bikes, kids.
And unicycles.
And unicycles, yes.
Carry on, Nate.
Any pedaled wheeled vehicle. So I had just gotten better from breaking my collarbone. I was like, I'll go up for Thanksgiving. Texas was way too far to drive. I was in Chattanooga at the time. So it was really far to drive back to Texas to go see my family for Thanksgiving. So I'd always go to Miguel's for Thanksgiving. So I was driving up. Collarbone was finally good. I was like cleared to climb. I was like, okay, this is going to be awesome. And rolled my Forerunner and actually ended up messing my collarbone back up from where the seatbelt lays right over it.
Jeez.
But my dad was awesome. He was like, hey, like you need a vehicle so that you can get back to college because you're now in BFE, Kentucky. So he drove the van all the way up to Kentucky. And then
Your dad's the sweetest man ever.
He is.
You know that, right?
Yeah, I acquired none of that. But yeah, so he drove it up and hung out with me at the Red for a little while. And so I was driving around until he was like, okay, you'll drive that till Christmas break. Thankfully, my Forerunner, I had full insurance on it at the time because I was still making payments on it. And he was just like, we'll figure something out. Like, what do you have in mind? I was like, I don't know. But man, as I'd be driving that van, everyone would be like, dude, you should like pull the seats out and build a bed in that thing. And I was like, it's not my van. It's just my dad's.
All the chicks are flocking to Nate for his van.
Bitches flock. Yeah, exactly. For the Chrysler Town and Country. And I still remember the conversation too. Like I was just about to drive home. I may have been on my way home and I was talking with my dad and I was just like, what would you think about me buying the van off you? And there was a full 10-second pause. And he's like, Nate, I almost dropped the phone. What did you just say again? I was like, I want to buy the van. He's like, and so we talked about it for I was driving home for Christmas. So we talked for the next hour about exactly what I wanted to build. I think I got home at 2 a.m.
And he's ready to build.
No shit. Yeah. He's just he's sitting there with a yellow sketch pad. He's like, okay, so what do you have in mind? And so described everything. I don't think I woke up till 1 p.m. the next day. And I come out to the garage and he's almost completely done building it. And he was all psyched. Yeah.
Jeez, you bought it for your $8?
Yeah, exactly.
You're ready to roll. That's incredible.
Oh, it was awesome. Yeah, he was super supportive. So
it's interesting. We are so blessed. And I think about this often. We stand on the generations before us. I had this moment when I was, my son Milo, he's almost 2. I'm jogging down the street in a $500 stroller that my parents bought for us. Incredible. I had this moment, and the week before, my dad toured me around Sedalia, Missouri. It's a real small town, and he showed, I went by Grandpa's house, I went by Great-Grandpa's house, and he showed me Great-Grandpa's house. I mean, it was tiny. 600, 700 square feet. The bathroom was an outhouse in the backyard, and he worked, his knuckles to the bone. And then my grandpa worked incredibly hard. My dad got an education, degree, went down that course and worked. I mean, he's still working. And like every generation has provided more and more and more. And now with a son myself, I feel like my whole mentality has changed. Now, my job is to provide for that little terrorist so he can provide for the next little terrorist.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that we all shared in common here is like there's no secret to success, but a big part of it is surrounding yourself with the right people. And the three of us are really fortunate just to have amazing parents who didn't quite understand why we wanted to do this, but could see that we were passionate about it, we were serious about it, and they were incredibly supportive.
Yeah, and I don't think it has to be your parents or family or any kind of relation, because I feel the same way. Like, I was fortunate to have these mentors who were amazing. My parents were horrible people, so they're totally out of the picture by the time I find climbing. But the people who took me in, a guy named Chris Eklund, who was a manager at the climbing gym, and Josh Dees, who was also another manager at the climbing gym, and who's now actually a patron of the podcast. So, these guys have stayed with me throughout my entire climbing career, and that's huge for me. I was just a punk kid coming out of being in trouble and potentially going away for a long time. And these guys kind of held me to a higher standard, and they treated me as if I was an equal. And I hadn't really experienced that before. So it doesn't have to be parental, it doesn't have to be family. It can be just the climbing community. I think it's saved a lot of souls, you know?
That's a good point. It's a dysfunctional family that seems to operate at a high level.
Yeah, true. It really, really is. Maybe that's why I felt at home there. It's so dysfunctional already. But so speaking of dysfunctional, I was talking to a mutual friend of ours, Chris DeSicchio, and I remember Chris from when he was a 14-year-old starting climbing in Cincinnati. And he told me these stories about your shop across the street from a strip club was it in Carbondale? Is that right?
Yep, Southern Illinois.
Yeah, talk to me about that a little bit.
It was the best and worst idea ever.
So tell me the best first.
So we were in desperate need of a shop. We were pouring holes in my parents' basement. We had a small rental house in Carbondale, and we were in desperate need of some square footage so we could, spread our wings, if you will. So the challenge was in Southern Illinois, where do you find something that works for us? So we found the perfect place. It was 3-bedroom house. It was out in the country. It had a big pole barn that was perfect for us. It had a secondary garage that we built a climbing wall in. We opened up to the community to come out, and on paper it was next door to a strip club. So as a young male, it was this. We're out in the country. This is the most incredible opportunity for any young man. This is pure gold. After the first day of moving in... Are you
going to suggest to Milo that he moves across the street from a strip club?
He'll never see this.
Okay.
After moving in, and of course our first night, we're excited. Let's go over. We got to see it out. We're in Southern Illinois in the country. I mean, that's literally all I need to say.
Yeah.
It was a train wreck. It was literally one and done. But the traveling climbers that came through our place, we opened up our doors to them. They were able to climb on the climbing wall. They were able to see kind of the process. We were able to venture out and develop new areas and establish new climbs and such. Those are memories I will never forget. I remember one time there were so many visitors there that I would just literally lose track. Like, we would wake up in the morning and there would just be a van parked in our driveway.
That was Nate.
We'd venture out and be like, "Hey, who are you? Oh, we heard this was a climber-friendly place." And one day it hit me. It was in Arkansas several years later, and a gentleman came up and said, "Dave, I haven't seen you in a long time." And he said, "I hate this line. You don't remember me, do you?" It's the worst. It's the worst.
How do you answer that?
I said, I'm sorry, I don't. He said, oh, well, I stayed on your couch for 2 weeks. And I completely forgot who this guy was, and I felt so bad, but it is what it is. There were hundreds of visitors that came through over several years. But it was a good time, and yeah, those sort of experiences like just added more fuel to the fire.
Yeah, totally. And so now that we're on bad experiences or maybe bad decisions, Yusuf, I know that you had a little blow up with the campground you were living in the red, right? And you ended up having to kind of vacate the premises.
Yeah, so I was staying with Linda for quite a while, and I was honest with her right off the bat. You know, I'm here for an extended period of time. You know, I don't have, you know, I'm not working. I don't really have the ability to pay, but I'd like to stay here. It's a nice place. So we had worked out an arrangement where I would work for her in exchange for, you know, kind of for room and board.
Yep, totally.
And I mean, that went on for 4 months. And then as far as I was concerned, I had worked, you know, every day that she asked me to. And I had to, you know, there was, towards the end of the season, something came up. You know, my mom was sick, and I left, you know, pretty quickly, pretty abruptly. But
Yep.
I let everybody know just to tell Linda that, you know, my mom's sick. I got to go back home.
Yeah, sure.
And I thought things were fine. And then I came back, you know, fortunately, like, everything turned out okay with Mom. And that following season, I came back. And when I got back to Linda's, everyone was like, Linda's been looking for you.
She's been searching on her golf cart for
she's
you
been
all around
looking
the
for you
campground.
for the last like 6 months. She's losing it. And I had no idea what was wrong. I just thought, you know, Linda's touchy, so I just thought, you know, I'll go talk to her. So I went up to the house, and she was like, I can't, you know, she essentially thought that I had stiffed her on,
Right,
you know,
right.
4 months of rent. And I couldn't explain to her enough times, like, no, like, we worked it out. Like, that's exactly why, like,
Yep.
you know, that's why I did all the laundry, cleaned all the cabins, took out the trash, replaced all the light bulbs, cleaned
Yep.
the bathroom. Like, I had no pride. I would do any job. You know, anything she wanted me to do, I'd do it. And
I think what happened is Linda got used to rock climbers who
Yeah.
have no other responsibilities in their life, you know? So she's like, where the hell is Yusuf? You
Yeah.
know? He doesn't have any responsibilities other than changing
Yeah.
my light bulbs.
And I, you know, after having it out with her, I just told her, I'd love to pay you back, but I just cannot. You know, like, I don't know what you want to work out. And she was just like livid. Didn't want
Yeah.
anything to do with me after that. Yeah, things calmed down after a while though. Like, she still asks about like my mom. She like checks in and sees how she's doing. So
Good.
Yeah.
And we hope
Things
Linda's
smooth.
doing well out there as well.
Yep.
You know, I know Linda's had some rough times lately, so hopefully she's doing well. But did that force you into thinking about what am I going to do with the rest of my life? When did that come about? When did it come about that you rejoined the normal society, so to speak?
I remember it was like right around that time. So the first year on the road, I lived exclusively out of a tent. But then after that thing had been set up for the better part of a year, it was so, you know, it had just been so weathered that I couldn't stay in it anymore. So I started living in my car, and that seemed like an upgrade. So I had my whole life in this car, and it was that season that I finally had it out with Linda that my car also got broken into down at the load lot. Yeah. So my car got broken into, and I remember I was walking down to the parking lot and saw two guys like standing around my car, like looking into it. And I walked up to him when I was like maybe about as close as we're sitting right now. And I just looked at the guy and asked him, did you just break into my car? And he looked at me and then ran and jumped in his like little
way.
Chevy Cavalier and took off.
It was the dude.
It was the dude. It was totally the dude.
Oh, that's crazy.
And in that moment, I just thought, well, fuck this guy. And I jumped in my car and took off after him. And I don't know if you've ever been back on those roads, but it gets rough.
Totally.
And I have no idea how he made it through those back roads in a Chevy Cavalier.
Oh man.
He was a local.
He was a local.
He knew every pothole, knew every corner.
He knew all of it. And so at any rate, obviously didn't catch the guy. Police didn't really care about it. They knew this guy was a problem. And I, couldn't do anything about it. He stole my phone, my wallet, didn't take any of my CDs, went through them, but didn't take any of my CDs.
Your NSYNC CD, of course.
I don't know what that says about your
Left
about your
the
musical
Smash
taste.
Mouth's greatest hit CD in the backseat of the car. But so I was living in my car and the windows were gone. I had no option, right? And I was just laying down in the back of my car. It was raining and I couldn't do anything about it. And that was when I thought, I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this. I don't know if I should do this. I don't know if I should be doing this anymore. But, like Dave said, climbing just once it sets in, you don't really get it out of your system. And it was a really hard night of just thinking about, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And am I making the right call? But then you'd wake up in the morning and
you just want to go back to your
and you
project.
just go climbing. Yeah, you've got stuff to do. You've got routes to do at the cliff, so you'll figure out those broken windows later. And again, you're surrounded with great people. Allie Rainey and Kevin Wilkinson took me in. It was awesome. They had a camper at Linda's. They let me stay with them. Kevin helped me fix the window, which was awesome. So it was I had this moment of doubt. Am I doing the right thing? And then the very next day, your friends, do everything they can to keep you on course. So it wasn't, that was a rough time because I really didn't know if I was making the right call. But ultimately, I kind of I limped along for another few months before I got a call from Dave, and that's when that was the moment when I thought,
Here's my chance.
This is an opportunity, yeah. And I'm not, I'm at that point I was ready for it,
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you say your friends, kept you on the right path, and they were keeping you on the path that most of society is that's not the direction you should be going.
Right.
And I went the other direction for a long time. I worked a 9-to-5 job and just worked my ass off my whole life and just believing that there's no way you can make a living in this climbing industry. It's a hobby and it's a lifestyle, but you still need to work this full-time job. And it's only recently that I've switched over to the dark side, so to speak, and I'm realizing that that's the right decision now because I'm following this passion, that I've had for so long. And you guys follow that passion a lot earlier. But that's not the way everybody on the outside sees it necessarily. Do you three feel successful? Do you feel like you're finding success in this climbing world?
Every day.
Yeah, Dave and I were just talking about this. It's different for different people, right? The definition of success is not objective, right? It's not
totally.
There's not one definition of success. I mean, I think a lot of people when they look at climbing, when it's not their career, when it's not what they do for a living, they look at success as clipping the chains, getting to the top, and checking the box next to the biggest number possible, right?
Right, exactly.
But for us, I feel like we're at this point where our success is in finding balance, right? We have so many other things that are going on right now, and they're all great things. And that's been, that's for me has been my definition of success. It's finding a balance. Climbing has been a vehicle that allowed me to get here, but now that I'm here, I have You know, a partner who we're getting ready to get married here in 3 weeks. So that's coming
Shout
up. We're
out,
excited
Bridget.
about that. Yep. And, you know, things at the climbing gym are going well. Like Dave said, St. Louis is a great community. We have amazing people here. Having moved back to St. Louis, like I really reconnected with my family. Like, you know, there's all these things that are happening that, you know, even though they are not climbing related, like climbing made them possible to a certain degree.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure your wedding's going to be populated with lots of climbers.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll be there. You know, I know you had a local climber help with your wedding invitations, and a climber's playing at your wedding in the band, and you know, so that community's played a huge part even in those non-climbing decisions.
Right.
You know, I think that's huge.
Success is like really hard to measure, right? For one guy, it's the fancy sports car, it's the perfect job, it's the financial like money to be free.
It's the motorcycle with all the little gadgets.
Beep beep. You know, I guess. So I've had to shift gears between like the climbing lifestyle and like, cool, how do you play some business? Like at least the Monopoly board, moving the pieces around. How do you figure out this other game?
Yep.
And it seems like if you shift the focus of success off of me, like I'm trying to be successful, I'm trying to get to this milestone, I want to, and you try to make the people around you successful, so you encourage them or you put the responsibility on them to try to improve, then that pays dividends like in gold. So when we first started, it was just myself and my brother, and we were struggling to like figure it all out. And slowly the team has grown over years of like hard work and risk and loss and struggle. It's grown and grown and grown. And I've changed the focus now to asking the team, how can I make your job easier? What can I do to make you successful? And by stopping and listening and getting that feedback and then trying to like execute that, by making the team successful, it just pays off in dividends. It's incredible. So I think it's like, you know, culture and society wants to push you towards being successful. I mean, you see it every day. We're bombarded with images: the fancy car, the sports car, the cash in the bank, the you know. But I think you get where I'm going with this. Sometimes when I panic and I get nervous, I just fake blacking out.
You fake. Are you gonna pass out?
Going down.
This might be one of those times.
Black Hawk down.
No, but I think the point is, you know, another key to success is surrounding yourself with the right people.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I think it's interesting that you talk so often about community, and I love that because you're an entertainer naturally. You know, it's what you do. So. And I get this, you know, where I like to be on a microphone, I like to be in front of people, you know, I like to be the center stage or whatever, but I'm not doing it for my own attention. I'm doing it to entertain other people and to help them have a good time. And I see the same thing with you. So it's interesting to hear you verbalize that you're trying to, you know, make it easier for the team and facilitate for the team and keep you spend so much time in here. I've watched you all week entertaining your team members. You know, all the people who work here are entertained by you the minute you walk in the door. Right. You know, and I'm sure there are moments where you're a total asshole. I'm sure it happens. You know, we all are, but they understand that because you've paid so much attention to making them happy and making their job work for them and making them feel successful.
Cool. I hope it's the snowball effect, and they'll turn around and do that, to the next coworker, member, day pass user, and so on. Yeah,
and I think they will. I really do.
I'm finding, like we've talked about this, Yusuf, and you've actually encouraged me to, success is like, people see it as like, oh, it's just a straight line to success, but it is a curvy road. And I mentioned with risk,
totally, with strip clubs,
potholes, and it's challenging. It's not as easy as you think. But Yusuf's really encouraged me to celebrate the small successes. Like, take time to celebrate, whether it's topping out a boulder problem. There's always another boulder problem. So take a minute to slow down, slow your roll, and just relish in the fact that you've accomplished something.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be topping out a boulder problem. If you just stick a move you haven't done or get closer to a move you haven't done,
Right.
that's a success to celebrate too. So
It could be climbing, it could be work related, it could be family related, but just take time to pause and celebrate those little victories, because it's just with the fast-paced world, it's hard to take a minute for yourself.
yeah, I think so for sure. Nate, do you feel like you're finding your way in this climbing industry? Has it changed for you since you were just dirt bagging?
Oh, it's changed a ton. Yeah, and that's what's funny is trying to think on this. I don't actually know how I define success right now entirely. Yeah, when, I lived on the road, always just worked shitty jobs, and always with the intention of, hey, this keeps me doing what I want to do. But I definitely hit a point to where I was like, man, I love rock climbing, but I want to do more than just work a garbage job that just keeps me climbing. Like, I want to do something that kind of feels significant, or at least I want to feel like I'm giving back in a way, like contributing. And yeah, it's funny. I actually stayed away the idea of coaching terrified me forever, because I was always really afraid of the idea that it would make me not like climbing. But with all my free time, all I would ever read about is things like coaching, things like training, things along those lines. That's what I cared about more than anything. But it was just I kind of stayed away from it. And then things just kind of lined up to where we started working together. And so now it's been a lot more of a balance, trying to figure out my own climbing and then coaching as well. And kind of a funny thing that happened the other night, I competed in the SoL Showdown here, which was an awesome event. But man, I got stomped. Absolutely. I haven't climbed inside very much, more or less for the last year, and came in and, man, indoor bouldering's hard. And
it's very hard.
Yeah. Afterwards, I was pretty bummed. I knew I didn't make finals. I was just well, this kind of sucks. And I don't know, knew not to go in with too high of expectations. It was supposed to be just a fun event, but it's if you try hard and you fail, it's shit sucks. But then I pulled out my phone and I looked, and one of the women I train just sent her entire season project. This was a huge thing for her. It was her biggest project, and she had sent it first go that day. And immediately I didn't even care about the comp. I was so happy. To me, that was success in that moment. I was just this means more than had I made it to finals. Had I absolutely crushed it, this still would have been the highlight of my day.
Yeah, and I think I find that all the time. I've initially, when I started, changed the power company into a money-making business, I thought, this is what's going to make me successful. The fact that I'm making money and I'm still climbing hard, and it's all within the climbing industry, But I discovered that hearing from my clients about their successes and hearing from this community that we've been building around, this training and practice culture, hearing their successes has been gigantic for me, and I think that's definitely the way that I define success now, is by, what is everyone around me learning from me? And then what are they passing on? When I see them share something, either we're working with coaches and they share something with one of their team kids, or if someone shares something on Facebook or whatever it is that they've learned from us and then they can pass on, that feels a lot more successful to me. And maybe mentorship or stewardship or something. I don't know exactly how to define it, but that's what I'm calling success now.
Do you boys feel like you've learned more from, the pupils or the students that you've trained versus what you've given them? Do you feel like it's a reciprocal relationship?
That's a funny question. I actually do. I feel like since I've been coaching more and spending more time building this business, I've had less time to learn new things from books or podcasts or whatever, but I get so many new ideas and so much new inspiration from my clients and from the people that we work with and we talk to every day and at these workshops. and through the podcast and through all these channels that we've created. So I feel like I'm constantly learning, and I'm just giving everyone the same information I already have. That's kind of how it starts to feel sometimes. So yeah, I think I feel like I'm coming out on the winning side of it for sure.
Nate, how about you, buddy?
Oh yeah, man. I think, especially a big thing for me is I'm so impressed by so many of the people that I train. Like, they have like real lives and real like just things that go on all the time. Like the idea of someone working a 9 to 5 throughout the year, no mishaps, and it's just like they go to a climbing trip and everything goes smooth. Like that's crazy. Like, but so often like people are like, oh, like I had gotten in a car accident, or I had a family member die, or something like that, and like, but they still like they make time for things, and it's really cool to see them balance all these things out, and it's been huge for me. It's helped me a ton, just be like put things in perspective a lot.
Yeah.
So, I think we all feel like we've had some version of success in this, climbing world, climbing industry, climbing life, whatever it is. What's your goal from here? Where are you taking your success from here in this same world, Dave?
This is one of those blackout moments. I just fake it.
I got your back. So we were talking about this the other day, and I think because I think just as we get older, that the answer to that question is just going to keep changing.
Yeah, totally.
I don't think for people with our personalities, we're ever going to get to a place where we feel like we've arrived. I mean, that's part of the reason why we are here right now, right? But I know that we've talked about this. At some point, it'll be nice to get back to climbing. I think
full-time climbing.
If we can, yeah. I think, we just decided, instead of spending our 20s and 30s living on the road climbing, it was time to buckle down, create something that would provide some stability and financial security, and then come back to it later.
Yeah, and it's hard, right? Because once you've created something successful, you want to create another thing that's successful,
right,
or keep growing the thing you've already created, or it's just like when you have a climbing project, you think this is the end all project, but you get to the top and you're like, okay, what's next?
You're already thinking about
moving on to something bigger.
Yeah.
It's a vicious cycle, right? Like, you create something, you put meaning into it, time, effort, energy, and you throw it out there and you just hope that people gravitate to it.
Yeah.
So it's just like, what's the next thing? And as you're progressing forward, you need to take time to nurture the things that you've already created to make sure systems are in place, they're up and running, you're satisfying the needs of people who are partaking. So it's this constant struggle between work and then live-work balance. Like, it's a never-ending chase, if you will.
Yep, absolutely. I think I get blamed all the time by my fiance for just going too hard all the time, and all the time I'm like, I'll just get this one thing done and then I'll take a break, and then a week later I'm like, I never took a break. I'll take a break tomorrow. And then a week later, and I never took a break, and it just seems to be how it goes. You just want to keep growing these things.
I have to congratulate you, though. You have done a fantastic job. It seems like your brand, your marketing, everything is just, you're riding this wave, and I just love to see. I love to see the scrappy startup to just, I'm all in. I'm throwing all my chips in this basket.
I'm just learning from you guys, man. I watched you guys come up, so
we do these CEO entrepreneurship classes where I don't know why they invite us out to these, but we'll show up to these high schools and the teachers will interview us and the kids will question and answer and stuff. And I remember saying so who wants to be an entrepreneur and why? And the first hand that shoots up is, so how long will it take before I make $1 million? That was the first question out of the 16-year-old. It was just verbal vomit on the ground. And it was and my comment was, if that is your motivation, you should just go work for someone else. If that's what you're chasing, you may never get there. But if you enjoy the process and the people and creating something, then
and if you can live in a van in Miguel's parking lot, then you don't need $1 million.
I love it.
Any of you guys have any questions you want to ask Dave or Yusuf or Nate or I? No? Okay.
Are you nervous?
You want to talk on the microphone? So what you're asking is, do we ever believe that success is going to happen one way, and then we start down that path, and then we immediately flip-flop? The next day we wake up and we're like, oh God, that was a huge mistake.
I can comment on that for sure. Like, you put all this time, energy, and effort into something. Like, you give your entire soul to a project, and it takes hours, and you're up late at night, you're up early in the morning to execute this thing, and you put it out there, and the first comment on social media is like, oh, the font was just horrible on the poster you put out.
Yeah.
It's like, it's such a brutal world. Like, it is. I've really learned to just put my head down and work as hard as I can towards a goal and just ignore the comments. Like, you just do the best you can. And if you're listening out there, I would just encourage you to think through even the little comments and really just provide a sort of environment of encouragement versus just this brutal beat you up over nothing, I don't know. So yes, it goes both ways.
Yeah, and I think as I've gotten older, I've learned how to pivot better. So, the thing about any kind of success, whether that's like finishing a project or starting a business or, anything, when you have a few things in play, I think it makes it a little easier to fail. Like, if you're going to succeed at anything, you have to be open to failure, and you have to deal with failure in a positive way. And if you kind of keep a couple plates spinning, when one of those falls, you can move on and keep the other spinning and come back to that other one. So, that's something that I learned, when climbing was my only thing, when it wasn't going right, it was devastating, because you're living out of your car, racking up credit card debt just to get to the top of this route. And if it doesn't happen, it feels awful. But now, being a little older and having a few more things going on, even if I'm suffering on my project, I can pivot, and I can, at a certain point I was working on the guidebook, or I can pivot and switch gears and start working on like the next big event at the climbing gym, or I can pivot again and, spend time with my family, so you might not always be successful in every area of your life, but it's likely that maybe you're 75% of the way there, right?
How much
at any given point in time?
How much have you learned from just failing? Like, you're just
all the things.
You learn so much about yourself. Like, how you fail is a really strong way to define yourself, because if you walk away from things at the first sign of failure, you're not going to make it.
You're not going to get very far.
Yeah,
and I think it's just as important,
far.
As failure, to put yourself out there, for me, and I know, I can speak for Nate on this, because Nate, will show me a blog post that he's written, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's perfect, post it. And 2 weeks later, he's still working on it. Because it's so scary to put something that you've built out there into the world for criticism, and I've gotten good at it over years of music and art and all these other completely subjective things that I put out into the world, and I'm just like, go for it, criticize it, do whatever you want with it, but this is what I believe and this is what I'm putting out there. And I saw you guys with So Ill early on doing the same thing, bucking the trend and not following the same path that everyone else had taken. And advertising the way you wanted to advertise, and selling your products the way you wanted to sell them, and making products that were different from everyone else. And it takes balls to put that stuff out there into the world. And I think that's just as important as failure, is challenging yourself to put those things out there. And you're always going to be scared that you just did the wrong thing.
Right.
It's always going to be like that. You just have to trust your gut.
Right. Lead with your heart. Like, be disruptive.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you want it bad enough, if you want something bad enough, you just have to take it.
Exactly. Exactly.
You can't just sit around and expect it to happen.
Yep. Anybody else have any other questions?
They might let us off the hook.
Okay, well, yeah.
Yeah.
As a fellow Southern Illinoisian, which one's better, the gallery or JB's?
So we're asking, as a fellow Southern, did you say Illinoisian? Is that really how you say it? I have no idea. I'm just curious. But
they were both
which is
train
better,
wrecks.
JB's or the gallery?
We're out in the country in the sticks. Like, they're both train wrecks. It's not like a big city life. The poor girls are just probably trying to pay for the college tuition. No problem.
So what Dave is saying is, don't go to JB's or the gallery.
Go neither.
Unless you have to.
It's horrible for your soul. Like, it's not a place you want to spend time at. It's a downward trajectory. The young man thinks that this is maybe a fruitful ending, but the older you get, it's not worth the time. But I have to say, Illinois is one of the best kept secrets of any climbing areas I've ever been to. I traveled for a couple years and then had the opportunity to literally move anywhere I wanted, and move to Southern Illinois. The sandstone down there is crazy. The Shawnee National Forest occupies basically the bottom third of Illinois. And that place literally changed my life. I remember the day I left Illinois to pack. I packed up my entire house, sold all the possessions we could, and we moved to St. Louis. And I remember looking in my rearview mirror thinking, what have I done?
Yeah, and I try to tell people that too, and they just don't believe you, They think you're crazy. They think, how could there be good climbing in Southern Illinois?
Right.
I love it down there.
I've even sent really close friends of mine copies of the guidebook to convince them that we've got a good thing here.
How'd that go?
The herds aren't there,
answer.
man.
Radio silence. They went to Spain instead.
You should follow up with an invoice. If they haven't replied, send them an
Good
invoice.
idea.
That's a great idea. Well, man, I appreciate you guys.
Hold on. Any more
All right.
questions? Anyway, yeah.
Oh, we got another one.
It's a bit of a business question, so I guess for any of you guys. My friends and I are trying to take a tech startup company together and go to that next level. So I'm just kind of curious, how did you guys get started, I guess funding wise? Did you guys approach venture capitalists, or were you able to take out loans, or how did you really take your from a hobby and turn it into a successful business?
Yeah, that's a good question. How do we, start these businesses from the ground up? Do we approach venture capitalists, or how do we fund them? That's a good question.
So we were young. We did all these little entrepreneur contests. I remember there was one that really stood out in my mind, and we presented a big slideshow and presentation, and we showed all of our product, and two things came from that. One, as soon as we were done with a 30-minute presentation, the gentleman looked at the climbing hold and said, "So what is this?" And I felt like we had disconnected our message to our audience. The second thing was everyone was dressed in suits, but there was one gentleman who was in literally flip-flops and shorts, and I guess he was the big IT guy and sold his concept to Microsoft. And he said, "If I give you $100,000 right now, what would you do with it?" And my smart aleck remark was, "I'd buy a $100,000 car." But I think after we left that meeting, we had a lot of discussions between my brother and myself. And the biggest thing I can say is be thrifty and be nimble. If he would have given me a $100,000 loan, I would have just trashed that. As fast as I could on just nonsense. So I think we started really small, grassroots, and we slow growth, not taking on too big of a financial burden, and really pacing yourself. Put in as much sweat equity as you can. Instead of hiring out, maybe try to cultivate the correct team, bring them in, so you've got people who maybe play to your weaknesses. Yusuf is a great example. He's a wordsmith. I can't type a complete sentence, but this guy can cultivate a message that. That would be my encouragement, would be to start small, be humble, grow slow, and build the right team around the product. And most of the time that yields to success.
Yeah, and I agree with everything Dave said. And I'll also add that I think you really have to try and build a culture around whatever it is that you're building and trying to sell. I think it's really important to get people involved in wanting whatever it is you have. If you really believe in it and you have enough belief in it that you're going to reach out to venture capitalists or whatever, then sell that to people as well, and those people, when they follow along, and they'll demand it so that they're, it can't be denied at that point. When the people want it, I think that's when it's going to happen, and I saw that happen with So Ill, and that's, sort of what I modeled my brand after was, they built this brand that got a cult following, and that, everyone who was a So Ill fan or a So Ill follower or, whatever you call them, they loved it, and they bled for So Ill. So I really tried to follow that same sort of model and really connect with the people who are going to be using my product and, being involved in my brand. And I think it's easy to forget about the people that you're selling to and making sure that they're taken care of.
I just want to encourage you to just go for it. Like, go all in. It's
totally.
Eat, sleep, like throw all the chips in the basket if that's the direction you want to head.
Yeah, and one thing that I learned from Dave that I think is really important, when you interact with people, treat everybody with respect, give everybody
absolutely
time in a conversation, because you never know who you're talking to at any given moment. It could be someone just in the same position you're in, but could also be that business developer who's looking for the next big thing, or it could be an angel investor who's figuring out where he or she wants to put their funds. So, make sure that, that might sound like it's a lot of pressure that every conversation needs to be perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect. You just have to make sure that, you treat everyone with respect, because they might come back to you.
I've got this audio in my head that says, just shut up and listen. Like, you can learn so much from people. The young kid that's just coming out of college helps you connect with that younger demographic, and the old CEO that's been at it 50 years. Like, just be still and listen.
Totally.
Yep. And
let's talk more after this. Now you've got my attention. I'm curious.
Yeah, totally curious now. And one last thing I'll say, that Dave mentioned earlier. Dave mentioned that he would be up early in the morning. He'd be up until late at night and working constantly. And late at night was at the strip club normally, but
you got to take breaks.
The importance of that is that you hear guys like, if you look at Tim Ferriss, in his podcast, and he wants to push this 4-hour work week and whatever, that's something that happens way down the road, but we see that example and we think that's what I want right now, but he got there because he spends so many hours working on his brand and working on what it is that he's selling to everyone else and that he's good at, so you have to put in the hours. You have to put in the work. It's too big of just a chance.
And if you build if you build the right team, like Dave was saying, you can spread out the workload. Because you're not, if you're the only one going at it, burnout happens real fast. And if the project's important to you and you don't want to leave it wrecked, you need to spread it out. You need to trust that other people are going to help you. You need to be willing to give some of it up.
Yep, absolutely. Anybody else have any questions? Yep. What's next for So Ill?
Big picture stuff. It's been challenging lately to figure out to keep the systems in place to free us up to be able to work on bigger picture stuff. I feel like the climbing community in St. Louis is growing. I feel like the industry is growing too. We just got back from Tokyo. My wife and I got to go over there. My brother had a trip booked for So Ill to hang out with our distributor and participate in a trade show, and he got sick. So on about an 8-hour notice, I got the call that I was headed there, packed my bags, and off we went. But it's been cool to see outside perspective. Like, traveling really puts things in a sort of different light, if you will. So it's cool to see this industry start. I mean, what felt like just a disorganized sort of climbers on the road to these sort of gym epicenters that are really introducing people to the sport. So I feel like headed towards the trajectory of introducing more people to rock climbing, more products, more things that people will like and absorb, and maybe a little vacation time.
I'm all for you taking that vacation time.
All right.
Any other questions? Anybody? Okay, well, first off, I appreciate you guys sitting down, and talking to me and chatting with us. I think it's great. We need to hear your stories. You guys are you're leading the charge, but you're doing it from the background. So it's cool to hear the stories. And thanks to Four Hands for the beer, for sure. You always have to thank the beer people. And all of you people on Facebook who are watching, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll do this again sometime down the road. You can all find us at powercompanyclimbing.com, at climbsoill.com, correct?
Yep.
And is it soill.com for the...
soillholds.com.
soillholds.com. You can find them there. And definitely check out their products. They push the boundaries for sure, and I love the way they do it. So check those guys out, and you can find us on the social medias. You can find us on the Instagrams. You can find us on the Facebooks. You cannot, however, find us on the Twitter because we don't tweet. We scream like eagles.
I gotta pee.
This time, this time, this time, this time to build, 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 this time power, this time.
And for you guys that are still here, we've got shirts set up over here. We've got stickers. We're going to be hanging out for a little while. We've got more beer, so please hang out, chat with us if you want to. I could chat all night, so please hang out.
This time to build power. 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 This time to build. 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 This time